I believed always in God. I don't know, from childhood, always. And I believe that I will be saved, and not only that, I believe that I want to live.
For a young Jewish boy growing up in Hungary, the Nazi invasion on March 19, 1944 would make survival very difficult. Overnight, Budapest was taken without any resistance. Weeks later, Jews living outside of the city were rounded up into ghettos, barely managing to exist while waiting in fear every day of what would happen next.
My name is George Stern, and my book is Vanished Boyhood. Vanished Boyhood is because I lost a lot of in my boyhood. I lost almost all my boyhood, even after the war.
George refused to wear the Yellow Star of David as ordered by the Nazis. His father feared his son would be arrested and arranged false documents so he could be sent away to the countryside to a friend's farm. He stayed for almost 4 months until he was mistakenly told the war had ended in Hungary and that it would be safe for him to go home. In his book, he recounts his return to Budapest, still under siege and now controlled by the fascist Arrow Cross regime.
When we got off the train and out onto the main street,
we knew something strange was going on. The street was almost deserted, and it was only 7 p.m. So we started to walk to the apartment in Modoc Square that we had left 4 months ago. On the way, we saw a group of men in civilian clothes, armed with automatic weapons, marching on the other side of the street. They were the Nyilas, or Arrow Cross, the most feared members of the notorious right-wing Hungarian National Socialist Party. And Eva told us that they might have taken over Miklos Horthy's government. We arrived at the apartment without being stopped by them, only to have Aunt Aranka and Uncle Frici confirm our worst fears. The radio had announced that afternoon, October 15th, that Horthy had been removed from office and the Arrow Cross Party was now in charge. We all knew what that meant. It was the beginning of the end for the Jews in Budapest. We had returned at the worst possible time. We pretty much stayed inside the apartment. Being out on the streets was dangerous. Hungarian Arrow Cross soldiers, or Nazis, could catch us and kill us.
it was the worst, most dangerous time in Budapest Jews' life. They shot the people in Danube, thousands, a few thousand, and then the ghetto, they died, a lot of people, starvation and sickness.
It was raining lightly one morning at the end of November when I went to search for food. Without thinking, I put on a flat type of hat that I later realized made me look more Jewish than I did without it. I had only walked about 200 meters when suddenly 2 Arrow Cross soldiers with automatic rifles on their shoulders appeared from out of nowhere and asked for my papers. I'd forgotten my Swedish papers but had all 3 Christian documents with me and took them out. After the soldiers had checked the documents, one of them said, "Why would a 13-year-old Christian boy have 3 documents in his pocket? Something's not right." They told me to go into the building beside us. I could tell that they suspected I was a Jew. I knew that if I went into that building, I would be lost. I'd be taken to the Danube and killed. So in a split second, I decided to run for my life. I grabbed all the documents, I bolted. I was close to the corner, so I turned left almost right away and ran a whole block. At the next corner, I turned left again and looked back to see if they were following me. When I didn't see them, I went to a building and climbed about 12 flights to the roof and stayed there until it was dark. I was on the roof without food or water for about 6 or 7 hours. I was terrified that somebody would see me. I finally climbed down the stairs, looked carefully up and down the street, and went back to the Swedish protected house. I had been gone so long that Aunt Lily was really nervous. For the rest of the war, I never wore a hat again.
So much trouble you go through, and you say, it's enough for the life. I don't mind if I die. That's not a good attitude. So I fight it to live, and I was That's I think that keep it me to life. Also, the believing to God.
Early one day in January 1945, George awoke to the sight of Russian soldiers in the basement of the building he was staying in. Budapest had been liberated, but he found out months later that his mother had been murdered in Auschwitz. His father and sister had managed to survive. Eventually, he found his way to Israel, served in the army, and then married and started a family. The Sterns left Israel for Brazil in 1960, then immigrated to Canada 10 years later. George wrote his book with encouragement from his grandchildren.
The new generation have to know what happened and it not happen again. Any discrimination is wrong.